Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore, where today we're going to be continuing the story of the Children of the Nameless, featuring Davriel Kane, or Davriel Greystone, depending on what name you want to go with. Now, when we last left him, he was talking to Rom, and Rom was like, you should go talk to Edwin. So, Rom takes Davriel to Edwin. And Edwin is basically like, they're in the priory, basically, and Edwin's there. And he is ready to throw down, because Rom tries to tell him, Edwin, calm down. This will not go well for you. And he goes, I can't believe you let him in here, Rom. You forgot our first lesson. Don't speak to the monsters. Don't reason with them. And most importantly, don't invite them in.
Don't fear the Reaper.
We can be like they are. Davriel's like, look, did you see me? You said you saw me 7 days ago, right? You said I was there. Two geists attacking merchants. How did I look? Did you see my mask? And he's like, I fled before you could see it. I could see it. He goes, you fled on foot. I didn't use a carriage, and you just let me go. He's like, you disappeared into the forest with your geists. I didn't see your mask, but the cloak is obvious, and I didn't give chase because I needed to check on your victims. So you told everyone you'd seen me, when all you really saw was an indistinct cloaked figure. And Edwin starts to like waver, because he realizes I might have just accidentally accused this guy and it wasn't him at all. You were looking for a reason to blame me for something. This was just the first chance you found. Foolish boy. How tall was this figure you saw? And he's like, everything is suddenly having to be reconsidered, right? And so what Davriel does is he rubs his fingers together and he summons a small amount of the pyromancy. Because he had already used it a little bit during the fights.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have quite as much of it. So he just kind of makes a small flame. And he makes the flames dance around his fingers. And Edwin's kind of like, this is not good. And then Davriel says, Rom, you should fetch some water. I'd hate to burn the place down by accident. And maybe get a mop to deal with what is left of this young man. And Rom just says, you got it. He grabs the senda and he leaves. And so Edwin is absolutely ghost white. He is terrified. But he still tries to attack Davriel. Yeah, but it turns out Davriel's cloak has special properties. You may have noticed that on his cards, where he is in his cloak, there's like a smoke behind him. That's an after image, basically, that is meant to confuse people that are like, they don't know where his body actually is. Kind of like Batman's whole deal with the cape. The kid misses entirely. Davriel taps his weapon. And then once the kid turns back around, Davriel uses the summoning spell and brings the sword back to his hand. And everyone's like, whoa, wait. Where'd my sword go? And he goes, tell me, child, do you really think that I would run from you? And the kid's like, I have a dagger. Do you really think that I would take souls in secret? If I needed them, I would demand them. And then he uses the ink spell, right? And he uses it to paint the walls black, like pooling ink. And he makes letters break off of the main body of the darkness and move across the floor and surround Edwin. And it's Old Ulgrothan, which is really cool because you don't really hear a lot about Ulgrotha anymore, because that was where the original Homeland set took place, and it was basically a flop. And it's where Baron Sanger's from. So the fact that we just have this random name drop of Old Ulgrothan, the sentence, the words themselves, it's hilarious to me.
I would love it if we go to Ulgrotha and the Planeswalker is Davriel.
That'd be hilarious. I would love that. I did not kill those people. They served me well. But your accusation has done incredible harm. Whoever is really behind this got away and has used you as a distraction. So answer my questions. What did this person look like? He's like, short, slight of frame, nameless angel, forgive me. And he runs away. And he's like, oh my gosh. These people.
It's like this again.
Yeah. So he ignores the kid and goes on his way. And he's like, okay, so they're shorter than me, slighter in frame. And behind him, he turns around and because he only hears this, are you quite done? And he turns around and sees the prioress. And she is not happy with him. She's just kind of there, upset at him, boring things. And she's like, stop threatening my priests. You're here for me. Claim my soul, take mine. Come on. He's like, I will have vengeance for what you've cost me, old woman. And then they'll just kind of stare each other down for a bit. And people are like walking through the hallways and they're just kind of whispering at each other like, somebody's gonna throw down.
Knowing Davriel, I just imagine the next scene being like, I will have vengeance for what you've done to me. Okay, give me the bill this time, Davriel. Okay, good. This is what you owe me for.
She goes, what kind of tea? This kind of tea. And so it's great because
like, how much was this window? It was antique stained glass. Y'all messed up this time. I'll wire you the funds.
We had a deal, Merlin. So apparently he had a deal with this prioress. Mm-hmm. Right? And so she goes and she starts poking at the letters. And she's like, are these going to come off? He goes, I have no idea. Hopefully nobody in your priory can read Old Grothin. I chose them because they look intimidating, but really, I learned a few phrases when I was younger, mostly as a joke. What I wrote outside is a recipe for buttered scones.
He goes, I'd like some of that with my tea.
Speaking of tea, he sits down in a wooden chair and he's thinking, what is it with you guys and not being comfortable? Are you just afraid of being happy? And she's like, well, my joy comes from other comforts. He was such as breaking contracts. And she's like, stop talking about that. We can't talk about that here. And so she sips a small cup of something that's on her desk, right? And so he looks at it and he's like, what
you got there?
That looks
smoothie.
That looks like tea. Is that Verlassen dust willow? And she's like, it's the finest. Nothing is better at stilling the nerves. This is unfortunately my last cup. And he's like, So that dust willow we were talking about, that herb, is what they use for the tea that we talked about a few episodes ago. And so she basically says, I was kind of hoping that the hunters were going to awaken you, get you to realize that your people are suffering and that you just kind of write their pains off as rambling missives. And he tells her, look, we had a deal. I was going to leave the people of the approaches alone. That's the backwoods area that they live in. And I don't demand any more than the food and the occasional gift of goods. And in turn, you kept people from bothering me. And she goes, their suffering is such a bother, isn't it? And he goes, well, would you prefer somebody else? Like a two-faced tyrant who is at one point someone who is just like crushing their wills during the day and then he's howling at the moon during the night eating people? Or would you rather go back to the blood-sucking scion of House Markov, like the last one that I killed when I arrived? And Davriel tells her, look, you've been played for a fool. Everyone has been played for a fool in this scenario. Because someone had to physically stab one of your priests in the village late yesterday, and they let whoever it was into the church, so your priest must have trusted them. At first, he thought it was Edwin. Davriel is like, do you know what the bog is? She's like, it's some kind of false god, some horror that's beneath the waters consuming offerings. There's no explanation for why evil does what it does. And he's like, no, evil always has a reason for what it does. It's evil and wants something. It's the moral person that acts erratically and against their self-interest.
Erratic.
The best way for them to be able to, like for Davriel to be able to figure out what's going on, he needs to go and find the spirit's leader, whoever's controlling them. And in order to do that, the prioress is going to allow him to reach into her mind and take out a Geist calming spell. And because of how devout she is, it actually hurts him a ton to do it. So while Davriel and the prioress are having their conversation, you have Rom and Tessenda. Tessenda was like being basically guided through the catacombs by Rom, and he wanted to show her all the different things, such as the sealing stone. She's interested in seeing that there are like no skulls, no bones, nothing like that in the catacombs. He's like, no, all of them are like sealed away and everything after they've been like properly set next to the sealing stone. And all of these things are little hexagons marked with the symbol of the Nameless Angel, which is some random ability thing, right? And so she's talking about how there's some people from the bog, people that belong to the bog, that are in the catacombs because they were converted, and this is where they were put with the sealing stone, right? So what's cool here is that they look at the sealing stone, and Rom explains to her, like, this place, this chamber where the sealing stone is basically where they go to not indoctrinate, but indoctrinate the people that are under the church by basically putting them there in the glow of the sealing stone for a night, and they basically stand vigil over it, and they like can have like a revelation kind of deal. It's just kind of a thing they do. And Tasenda's there, and she's looking at the stone, and then she remembers Davriel and remembers Brerick, and she goes, Rom, did you ever feel guilty about killing demons? Did you ever think about them? And he goes, when I was younger, no, of course not. But after the angels went mad, thought about it then. I wondered, was my entire life just going to be about the killing? Was there no way to stop it? Make a world where men didn't need to fear either the dark or the light? And he says that he couldn't find the answer, so he just walked away. And so they begin to leave, and before they do, she notices that there's this carved stone depicting the defeat of this demon. Rom revealed to her that there were secret passages in the catacombs, like on murals. There are little buttons that you can press, little knobs that can be turned, and once you push them in, it'll open up new things, and you can enter through that. And Rom's like, yeah, don't worry about that stuff. It's mainly where we start embalming equipment and dustbins and stuff like that. So Tasenda runs down into this other corridor where they keep all the embalming stuff, and she sees her sister. She sees that Willia, she believes, is the prettier of the two, despite the fact they had the same face. And Rom is like, I'm sorry. I've been a fool. I should have realized. And Tasenda goes up to Willia, and she lowers the viol from her hand. She touches the corpse's cheek. And she thinks, no, this isn't a corpse, it's a body. Because her soul must still be out there and must be recoverable, just like everybody else that was in that thing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, she thinks back to what Davriel said. You must choose your own path and make your own destiny. And she's thinking, well, maybe it wasn't destiny that had kept Tasenda in her place by the cistern, playing her music to keep the darkness away. Maybe it was something stronger. And then Davriel shows up and he's like, oh, there you are. And Rom's like, so is the prioress, he goes, we've reached an amicable agreement. And when she agreed, she was wrong, and I agreed that killing you would be far too much of a hassle. Tasenda, I have what I came for. I wish to be away from this place before its stench starts to cling to my clothing.
And we'll see where they go next in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and catch you guys next time. New location, but we're still doing Children of the Nameless. Don't miss how this story ends. I don't know if it's going to end soon, but it's going to be awesome.
We're a little over halfway there.
Halfway there.
Exactly.